Plato is so significant that J.H. Myriad says that the entire Western philosophy is nothing but footnotes to Plato. Such is the significance of this Greek philosopher who was born in Greece in 427 BC and kicked the bucket in 347 BC. Some of his most important works are the Meno, the Republic, Parmenides, the Symposium, and Phaedo. Plato was a student and friend of Socrates, and both of them disliked democracy. Now, why did they dislike democracy? You can know that in this video in the top right corner. But before we understand Plato, we need to know his mentor Socrates, because Plato has inherited his debate from Socrates. Before Socrates, and even during his lifetime, there were epistemological questions about the natural order of the world and moral order. In both areas, the same questions about knowledge are developed. What is the world made of? Can we know about the physical world? Are there objective truths in ethical matters? Or are we just stuck with mere opinions? Are moral ideals universal or are they relative? So whether the question is about virtues or ordering of the city-states or moral values or even cosmology, the same questions arise. How can we know for sure? How can we get beyond varying relative opinions to the truth? The entire debate begins with three groups: the scientists, the sophists, and Socrates. The scientists had wide disagreement about the nature of reality, especially about the substance of which the world is made of. This promoted the development of the sophist epistemology. The sophists made two assertions. One, we cannot know the nature of the material world, and second, moral laws and values are relative. They argued that the knowledge of the material world is not possible because perception is the only source through which we can gain the knowledge about the material world, and perception is not reliable. Now, why is perception not reliable? Because we can only perceive the representation by the particles arising from the object and not the object itself. Also, our senses are not reliable in providing us accurate information about the external world. For example, wine tastes sweet to an healthy man, but the same wine tastes bitter to the same person when he is sick. This is the reason sophists denied the possibility of the knowledge of the external physical world. The sophists also argued that moral laws are relative and there are no objective moral values. Now, there is a reason for such a position of the sophists on moral laws. In ancient Greece, laws varied from state to state. New ruling parties often changed the laws made by the previous government, and laws were based on customs and conventions. Hence, the sophists held that morality consists in one's own pleasure. That which benefits man is good, and therefore sophists like Protagoras taught, man is the measure of all things, and everybody's opinion is equally true. This doctrine is called as homo mensura, and the natural consequence of this doctrine is might is right. That is, the one who has power gets to decide what is right. The sophists were traveling teachers. They proposed to teach the youth about what is good. But what they actually taught was rhetorical skills. How to be successful in public arena as an aristocrat. How to influence people and win friends. And above all, they charged fees for their teachings. This is the reason Socrates disliked sophists and treated them as traitors to the cause of good. Socrates, who disagreed with the sophists, said that perception is not the only source of knowledge. If perception were the only source of knowledge, then even dreams should be held as true. And if man is the measure of all things and everybody's opinion is equally true, then Protagoras has to admit that Socrates' opinion that the doctrine of homo mensura is false is also equally true. Hence, Protagoras' claim is self-defeating. Socrates was a deeply religious man. For him, the chief business of life is attainment of virtue. In the pursuit of truth, the soul will be nurtured, developed, and disciplined, said Socrates. His main concern is not success, but the moral nurture of human soul. He believed in the objectivity of truth and morality. He believed in the validity of knowledge and laws as universal, be it social laws or political laws. So he tries to get people to think about truth, good, and virtues like justice, courage, temperance, love, etc. What medicine and exercise are to the body, good laws and the administration of justice are to the soul. Know thyself, said Socrates. Only then you can cultivate the nurture of your soul. But how can one attain this objective knowledge of moral order and the knowledge of natural world? Socrates' answer is reason. He argued that since human faculty of reason is universal, the knowledge gained by reason would also be universal. Reason can be used to form concepts, and concepts can give us the knowledge of good. Such knowledge would be universal and valid for all people at all times. This universal knowledge of good through concepts by use of reason is called as virtue. Socrates believed that this knowledge of virtue and the good is already present in one's mind. All you need is to provide a direction to the inquiry, and the knowledge lying dormant resurfaces. For example, Plato, in his work The Republic, records a conversation between Thrasymachus, a sophist, and Socrates on the concept of justice. Thrasymachus argues, justice is the interest of the stronger. Socrates would ask, what do you mean by interest? Thrasymachus replies, justice is that which benefits the stronger. Socrates asks, does that mean that if slaves, being physically stronger, overthrow the rulers, would that be perfectly just? Thrasymachus would of course disagree with such a conclusion and would be forced to rework and modify his previous assertions. This process of searching and questioning the person's line of thought to force him into exposing self-contradictions and ridiculous conclusions, or until the truth begins to emerge, is called the Socratic method, which Plato later calls the dialectic method. This is the intellectual midwifery that Socrates performed. Such a methodical inquiry would give us universal knowledge of moral laws, which then could be adhered to by everyone, everywhere. And the same reason can be used to gain the knowledge of natural world. Now, Socrates wasn't much concerned with the inquiry of the natural world. When I don't know myself, it seems ridiculous to me to inquire of the external world, said Socrates. As previously mentioned, he was more concerned with the nurture of soul through universal knowledge of morality, which the Sophists denied and misled the youth. Will life be worth living if the higher part of man, the soul, is destroyed, which is improved by justice but depraved by injustice? Said Socrates. The endeavor of inquiring both the moral order and the natural order was undertaken by his disciple Plato, who presented the theory of forms. Now, since you know the context, we shall study Plato and his theory of forms in the next video. Until then, heed the words of Socrates. I cannot teach anyone anything. I can only make them think.